I'm so excited today. We have with us Dr. Elena Rumack, a pediatric dentist, and someone who I look up to and am so inspired by. So thank you so much for being here with us.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Jessie.
So excited. When Elena and I were when I first learned about you, we we crossed paths in our career because we work with similar patients when they're on certain journeys. For so long, people were like, well, you should reach out and introduce yourself. And I thought, no, I was so intimidated. I thought I have no business even being in her universe. And then,
oh my gosh, I'm so scary.
and then I met you and I was like, oh, she's so wonderful. She's so nice. But your reputation is so inspiring that I just had such imposter syndrome.
Oh, thanks so much.
But here we are. I'm so glad you're here. So for everyone that doesn't know you, you own a pediatric dental practice, but why don't you explain a little bit more? Because I know there's more going on in that practice than only dentistry.
Mm-hmm. Well, I started my own pediatric dentistry about 13 years ago, something like that. I've been a pediatric dentist for about 17 years. And I did my dental school at UCLA and my residency at Rancho Los Amigos, where I worked with a lot of people with special needs. And then decided that I really wanted to go into pediatric dentistry from there on out and work with children who had special needs. And so it kind of went on from there. And after Rancho Los Amigos, I applied for the pediatric residency program, and I was also accepted to UCLA. So I've been Bruin all the way through. And since then, I've also stayed at UCLA and been teaching volunteer faculty at UCLA for the past 17 years as well. Yeah, so it's been a wonderful journey. I try to just learn as much as I can and still try to. That's a big part of the reason why I'm still teaching there, because I feel like, when you teach someone, like you really have to know what you're talking about. And that keeps me on my toes. And every time I go to UCLA, I learn something new from the residents, just through fresh eyes and through, the most recent research. So I'm updated on all that. So it's definitely been a very rewarding experience.
That's awesome. So you've been doing it for about 17 years, and I'm going to take everyone back to the beginning. So you've been married for 20 years?
Yes, we're celebrating our 20-year anniversary in 2 weeks. So
happy anniversary. So how did, what's your husband's name?
William Rumack.
How did you and William meet?
We actually met in undergrad at UCLA. Yeah, so we were, he was a freshman and I was a sophomore. We met at UCLA years and years ago, but we lost touch after college.
Oh, really?
Yeah, reconnected 12 years later through a mutual friend. And so started dating. He's an orthopedic surgeon in West Hills. And so we kind of started dating, and he was in Texas at the time, just long distance. And then eventually he came back, and then we stayed together.
So you guys got married while you were still in school and going through your residency.
Yes, I had just finished dental school and we got married, and then I went through residency, and I had my, first baby in my residency, in fact.
So talk about that, because that can't be one of the easiest moments in your life, being in residency and becoming a new mom, because all of those separately sound like enough to have on your plate, right?
Yeah, it was definitely overwhelming to just be pregnant and just be at such a high level of learning, and the physicality of dentistry is also a difficult something difficult to conquer. When you're pregnant, it's really hard to work, sort of leaning forward all the time and in front of patients, especially, patients that are moving on you. So, the physicality of it is also tough,
Right.
besides all, the studying you have to be doing and keeping up with all the academics and all the research that you have to be doing. So yeah, it did, thankfully, I'm not the first pregnant resident. So they've, been through that before. So they were understanding about, giving like a short time of maternity leave. So, and then we could make up our, research later on as well. So yeah, they were wonderful.
And I mean, when you're pregnant, you're exhausted.
Yes.
You're not functioning on all cylinders like you're used to feeling. And
Right.
I don't know how your pregnancy was, but a lot of times you don't feel well either.
Yeah. There is that. I mean, thankfully my pregnancy was pretty smooth. And I mean, I'm one of those people who I feel like the busier I am, the better I do almost, because it makes myself like, step up. And it makes me really forget about the discomfort when you're busy and distracted with doing other things. I don't know if that makes sense.
I love that. I think that's a really important point, and it's becoming sort of a running theme as I am talking to more and more women about how they manage everything going on in their life. And I can relate to that. When you slow down, for me, my mind doesn't go to productive places as far as like advancement. And I think a lot of women that I'm talking to who are advancing in their career, in business ownership, that busyness kind of propels us forward and keeps us on track. So it's interesting to hear you say that as well.
Right. You feel like you're drowning, trying to keep your head above water a little bit, but it just it's also motivating, to keep going. If I slow down, gosh, I think I would really be sitting there focusing on the pain and discomfort and everything else that, basically shouldn't, take my attention, away from the important stuff.
Were you always a driven person though? Were you always like, even growing up, were you someone that wanted to keep busy and somebody that wanted to keep pushing yourself? Is that a perspective from the beginning?
Yeah, I think I've always been that way. I think it's just part of my personality, just to, try to be, I guess, like the best version of myself. If that makes sense. Just trying to better myself, I feel like no matter, how well versed you are in what you do, there's always more to learn. And I'm constantly in a place where I feel like, wow, the more I know, I feel like the less I know,
Yeah. Every time I take a new course or I learn something new that I can do in my profession, I feel like I'm starting from square one.
Yes. Like jumping down like a rabbit hole, like I did with the frenectomy, the lip and tongue tie releases. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I knew nothing about this. I have to find out more because this is just so important, and it really affects, moms and babies and how kids grow. So that just really inspired me to go out and just find my own research, because I was never taught this in dental school. And so it's just, interesting how you kind of get into a subject that you're interested in, and then you just feel like, wow, I know nothing at all.
I can completely relate to that, because that was what myofunctional therapy did to me.
In my master.
How have I made all these children try to say their R sound and their muscles are in complete dysfunction? And then I just went down that myo rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And that was that. But yeah, it wasn't even mentioned in my school program. I knew nothing of it. So, okay. So you just mentioned frenectomies and lip and tongue ties, and there's a lot of people that don't know what that is. So let's, I guess, kind of transition to where you are really focused on in your career right now and what you're offering to the community, because it's so important.
Well, I started, learning actually from other professionals, and more so lactation consultants and speech therapists, about how tongue ties can affect children on so many levels. From the lactation consultant, of course, I found out that it really affects how moms can breastfeed a baby, and if they have a tongue tie, it's really difficult and painful for the moms. And then from the speech therapist point of view, I learned that, tongue ties can cause like speech delay and, difficulty making certain sounds. So it was really interesting to me to hear from different professionals and their issues that were happening. And from an orthodontist point of view, who I work with, we were noticing that, kids that had misdiagnosed tongue ties were having like a lot of crowding and a lot of, jaw development issues, to be honest. From my point of view, a lot of cavities. So I was thinking, wow, this is really sort of multifactorial, all the things that can affect. So I started, kind of digging more into it and talking to people about it and just taking courses and reading up and researching, from a very few, maybe a handful of people who were tongue tie experts in the nation. And now it's kind of, a lot of people have, since known a lot more about it, and it's much more widespread. And actually what has driven, all other dentists and other professionals, pediatricians, to learn more about it is actually from the moms themselves who've just, through social media. Isn't it amazing? Through social media, just said, hey, I had the procedure done, really helped. And, I have no more pain when I'm breastfeeding. My baby latches great now. And then I'm seeing in my practice how much better the kids are developing, on all levels, breathing better, sleeping better, less cavities, speech is improved and, much quicker. And so many issues, and from learning from the ENTs as well, from their point of view, how it affects the breathing, the airway, and all that as well. So it's been fascinating, but it's been something, unfortunately, that nobody learned in dental school. Nobody learned it in medical school, so the pediatricians aren't really diagnosing it. And even the lactation consultants, many of them don't know about it or look underneath the baby's tongues to check if there are any issues. I would say speech therapists are probably the first line of defense, but by the time a child gets to a speech therapist, they're pretty, they're at a toddler or a preschool age already.
Yeah, I would say even in my clinic, though, a lot of speech therapists entering the field, it's still not really talked about. So they know about it. They know to look for it more than I did coming out of grad school. I mean, I had no clue, but it's still, they're not taught like how to, we don't diagnose, but we know when to refer. But it's still a lot of like, isn't this, what am I looking at? And then what are all those signs and symptoms? It's still not really being taught. So that's what I like to really.
And I think that it hasn't been taught is because the diagnosis is very subjective. It's not black and white. It's not like you see it and it's there. Or it has a lot to do with function. And
the symptoms, and then all the different areas that you just mentioned. It's not just speech, it's not just breastfeeding. I have a lot of kids that come in at 3, they breastfed fine, but I'm like, I'm so happy for you, but look at everything else that's happening right now. And they're older, right? And
definitely symptoms can happen at any time. Beginning with
infancy. Because she breastfed fine. I still think too, you chose to go down a path in your career where we still have pushback. We still have resistance, where there are pediatric dentists that say, nope, it's not a thing. Tongue tie is not a thing. Don't touch it. Or, anyone in any profession, it's not widely completely something that everybody is talking about and accepts. So it's still a lot of like education for those of us that are working with this population of patients. So it adds a little extra challenge. But when you witness it, right, then you're just like, I've seen.
It definitely takes a lot of experience diagnosing to be able to do that properly. So it's one of the most missed conditions of a child and misdiagnosed condition in a child as well.
Well, I love that you're helping these patients, because it's definitely not the easy path to take, but it's certainly a rewarding
It's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my career. So, and it's sort of like, talk about instant gratification. It's one of those things that just, can, make a difference overnight between, a child and the mom's breastfeeding relationship, which is huge. When you're a mother, breastfeeding is like the most important thing you can do for your baby. And you feel like, your body should be able to provide that for your child. That's just kind of part of, nature and your ability to provide as a mom. And when these moms have difficulty breastfeeding or have to give it up, they feel a tremendous amount of guilt.
Mhm.
And they feel awful. It's like, this is the one thing I should be able to do for my child, and I can't do that. And when you have a newborn, it is devastating.
It really is. And I am that mom. So my oldest is 10, and we had a horrible breastfeeding experience. I had severe postpartum depression. He never stopped crying. He struggled. And at 2.5 months, because I didn't know any of this. I was a speech therapist in the schools treating articulation and language. I didn't, none of this. I was just 2 years into my career. That's not true. Anyways, my timeline's totally off because I've been doing this longer than 12 years, but I still didn't know about it. And I had to stop. We had to stop at 2.5 months because he was miserable and I was miserable and I didn't have any other solution. And I just think if I knew then what I know now, or if I can help somebody else in that position, because it was awful to not be able to comfort your child.
Right.
To feel so horrible as a mom. And then it also drives
Yes.
So yeah, it's really hard being on that side of it. So I love that
Absolutely.
access that care and it's being talked about more.
Absolutely. And I had difficulty breastfeeding my firstborn too. So I know what it feels like to just feel like incompetent, not be able to provide the one thing that I'm supposed to do, for my baby. And it was devastating.
Don't you love that as a woman that you're working with women and you can talk to them as a professional and from a personal standpoint too, though, that you're a mom, you're a parent, and you know what it feels like to be in their shoes, literally, because you have your own children and can relate to what it feels like to feel scared for their child, whether it's tongue-tie related or not. They're in your dental chair because they want help for their child, right? So I think it's really, really special to be like, okay, professionally, I'm going to talk to you this way, but let me put on my other hat and be like, I get it. I can relate to how you're feeling.
And actually, I love the education part of it as well. It's not just helping one dyad. If I feel like if I can really explain to the parents how this is affecting their child and what we're seeing down the road, these children who have been, not diagnosed or misdiagnosed, all the issues that come about. I feel like if I can educate them, then if their friend, has issues and they can say, hey, these are some of the symptoms that I had too. And, you should go get it checked out, and encourage, moms who have difficulty breastfeeding to, just go get an evaluation. And I have so many parents who come in, and the parents are, afterwards hearing, what I had to say, they're upset. They're like, why isn't every baby diagnosed for this in the hospital? And I said, that's a really good question. Because, nobody does it. Nobody diagnoses it, or they are not sure, or they're, just, they just can't be definitive about it. And people, I feel people are really afraid to talk about it and to, give a definitive diagnosis, or they don't feel like they have the experience to do so. And, but, what I'm saying is if you're not, if there are professionals who are not sure, at least they, go to a professional and get it evaluated. I'm not sure.
I do. I'm like, I can't diagnose, but I'm not just what I look like, but here are your symptoms. Please go see somebody that can diagnose it.
Yeah. And if you diagnose it, then have the parents do something about it. Go to a professional and get something done. And I just the other day, I had a parent who had a mom who came in and said, yeah, my baby has a tongue tie. My pediatrician told me he thinks he has a tongue tie too. And he just says, well, do with it what you want, but I think he has a tongue tie. And was like, just kind of, said, well, you can do something about it, but you don't have to.
Hard for parents.
So I was just like, wow, I wish he would have come in earlier, and, I wish he would encourage you to, really go get that checked out.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to go backwards now. So you're younger in your marriage, you're a new mom, because your kids are really close in age.
Yes, 17 months apart. Yeah.
Right. So you have these two babies, and then you're like, I'm going to open my own dental practice. So I really want to explore that with you, because I think there's a lot of people listening that want to go that route, or, it's so scary.
Yes.
That's a risk. There's no way to say like, this is a safe bet. I am not jumping off a cliff right now. That's jumping off a cliff, because you don't know. I mean, sure, you can know like the practice will succeed, but all the steps to having it succeed is a lot. So kind of talk to me about that entire journey. Like, first, why did you decide to open your own, and how did that feel for you?
Okay. Well, I didn't open up right away. I did associate for a number of years, for about 5-6 years, I would say, before I decided to go out on my own. And I was actually pretty happy associating, because I didn't have any of the burdens of running the business. I just go in and work, and I wouldn't have to think about it at night. Yep. When I go home, I thought this was pretty nice, with 2 young kids and, a new family. I thought it was pretty ideal. And actually, and you'll hear this from a lot of pediatric dentists, is like they were kind of forced into opening their own practice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there are, in my case anyways, the dentist I'm working for, who I really loved working with, sold his practice to someone else. And it was someone whose philosophy that I did not agree with. Okay. And I just didn't enjoy practicing there anymore. So, I was kind of, I didn't have a choice. It was either, go somewhere else. And I actually did go to a couple of other places. And I also found that I wasn't a good fit for their practice. And so it was more because of desperation. I was like, well, I guess it's time to open my own, because, I kind of knew how I wanted to run things.
But also you were listening to your gut. You were following your intuition. You weren't saying, I'm going to just do this because it's easier.
Yeah.
And then though I don't really align, what, I want this podcast to really explore is like, who are we authentically? What are our values, and how do we honor that? And sometimes that takes us down a really hard road in order to stay true to ourselves, which is deciding, okay, I'm going to go out on my own, because as you said, being a business owner has a lot of burdens. It is not shiny and pretty and easy.
No, it's not. You think about it 24/7, right?
You're never not working, no matter where you are.
You feel like you're taking care of everybody, not only the patients, the parents, but your staff, especially. Yep. You've got to treat them really well. And you just got to, accommodate every single person around you. It's a difficult thing to do. Yeah.
I joked around the other day that I might go on a trip with my family or wherever. I never check out. I'm always looking at like messages coming in, wanting to know what's happening. And then several years ago, I had to have surgery. So I had a week where I was like on pain medicine. I was in bed. I discovered Hallmark movies, and it was like the most beautiful week I've had. And then I just have surgery once a year. It's the only time I've ever checked out from work. Ever. Literally couldn't think about it. But yeah, it's 24/7. So what was it like for you as you were getting going?
It was it was very scary. Starting my own. I mean, thankfully, I had already been in another practice, so I had patients who followed me.
Okay.
But I just had to have faith that I was doing the right thing. I was treating patients the right way to the best of my ability. And, I felt, I was in a good location at the point in time when I opened. Yeah, I'm in Calabasas. So I'm, the only pediatric dentist there. It was very difficult to actually open a practice within the city of Calabasas. But I actually got really fortunate because they wouldn't allow any medical people in the city of Calabasas at all. It was only because there was a dentist that was there. I think he was there for like 30 years, and he decided to move his office, that I was able to, rent his suite and was sort of grandfathered in.
Oh, that's like kismet.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have happened at a better time. I literally just, decided to walk in, introduce myself, and I wanted to see if I could maybe rent space from him or something like that. And and then that's when he told me, he's like, I'm actually going to be thinking about leaving this practice in a year or so. You should talk to the leasing people. And I was like, oh my goodness, wow, and he was one of the only dentists in Calabasas as well. So at the time, so it just really worked out well, and this took advantage of that timing, thankfully.
Awesome. So you didn't even have to do a build out. It was all set up.
I did have to change quite a bit of stuff around. Just the whole configuration was a little different, but yeah, for the most part, yeah, all the guts were there. And so just, it was more cosmetic and just moving things around a little bit. Yeah. Thankfully.
Guiding you and helping you and like a mentor, or were you kind of just figuring it out on your own?
I figured it out on my own, to be honest. I mean, and this is something that they don't teach you in dental school either. I'm sure when you go to school, they don't teach you how to run a practice, and they learn about.
Yeah, one day I was a business owner, and they're not the same.
Yeah, they're not the same. Yeah, it's a very different skill set. And how the insurances work, and the hiring, the firing, and the promoting, the marketing is just all encompassing, right? And you're doing the dentistry yourself too. So it's just constantly on your mind, constant worry. Am I having a new child?
Yeah, it is. I always say my business is why I have 2 kids and not 3. It's my 3rd.
Right. Exactly.
So what did you do when it was hard? What was your mode of self-care, or coming down from that fear, or at least working through that fear? How did you handle those moments?
I think just having faith and that things would work out. And I had really encouraging people around me, my husband, my family, who had faith in me, and I leaned on that a lot. Yeah, and I had, I tried to surround myself with good people as I was going through this and learning. And, I surrounded myself with people who had, started their practice before. And I relied on contractors that were really knowledgeable, who, had a lot of advice to give me as I was going along. I would just say, like, when you're starting out something hard, it's worth it to pay extra for the expertise and the support that, because you want to start off on a good foundation. And, just kind of paying the price to, make sure that you have that good foundation and good people surrounding you is what took a lot of stress off of the whole building part of it.
That's nice. And did you start and it was just you in the office?
Yeah, it was just me. And then, I knew I always wanted to bring on an orthodontist as a partner, because, pediatric dentistry, orthodontist just totally works hand in hand. And I really like the collaborative effort, because we share, all the same, we can discuss cases together and, treat patients, comprehensively. So it just so happens that my husband's cousin, Jason Pear, is an orthodontist.
I didn't know he was your husband's cousin.
Yes, he's my husband's first cousin. Their
Oh,
moms are
wow.
sisters. So I had always wanted to work with Jason. I mean, I adore him. I've known him, I met him in undergrad with Bill as in their freshman year. I met them together because they were roommates and they went to UCLA together. So I met them together. And so, I love his philosophy, his laid back style, his bedside manners. But he was so busy, in 2 other practices already. And I really had to kind of like get him overtime to say, come on over to Calabasas. And then that's how we kind of started. He started giving me like a day a week, and now he's like up to like 3 days a week sometimes, because it's been growing so much for him as well, that he's actually like left one of the practices to be with me now. So, which has been great.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's been a really great partnership. It's a really good fit. Our philosophy is very similar, the way we treat patients. So I think the patients really appreciate that they can have continuity of care and know that they're, taken care of in their one-stop shop.
Yeah, well, so I met you through working with similar, we shared patients, but then when I saw how you worked with those patients, I moved my children over to you.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so now, and I will say my daughters had to have some procedures with you, and the warmth and the care that you give her is so amazing that she leaves and goes, cavities aren't a big deal, Mom.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. I know, I do get that. I do get some parents saying, like, can you make
and then
people so they know they're not supposed to get cavities? I'm like, no, I can't. I'm sorry.
She's like, it's fine. So yeah, I agree. You guys have amazing bedside manner, and the office feels so warm and so inviting and so safe. My children have no dental fear at all. Maybe they should have a little, but they don't. Right? And that's great. I mean, that's a huge testament to how you treat them. You've even when she was in Dr. Pear's chair struggling and you were not working that day, you were just in the office and you sat there and you stroked her hair and you calmed her down, and we were able to move on. So it's so wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I like to treat, every kid like they're my own.
Yeah.
But I tell the parents I treat them better. I won't yell at them.
Right? You can have so much more patience for children that aren't yours.
Yes.
That's why for their speech therapy, I'm like, I'm out. I cannot do this.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I feel like I have like infinite patience for other people's children. Yeah, not so much my own.
No, not at all. So what would you say has been the hardest part of business ownership for you? Because there's so many different parts.
Gosh, the pandemic really did us in.
Okay, so really talk to me about that. What was it that started the pandemic for you, and how did you?
It really did us in. I was just right at the point where I was moving to the new location.
Oh.
So I was just starting to build out a bigger office so that, both Dr. Fair and I could be there, at the same time, and I can have an associate.
You're really looking up at this point.
Yeah. So I was like just fiscally really invested in the whole process already. And all of a sudden the pandemic hit, and the American Dental Association said all dentists need to close their practices.
That makes
sense. And I was like, oh, and my heart stopped, and I'm like, oh my God, how can I do this construction and continue to build the new space when I was not allowed to work and I had no income at all coming in? And we didn't know how long it would be. And I was just like, oh my goodness, that really did us in. And then after we were allowed to open, which was like, I was closed from March to July.
So what did you do at that time? Because I cried a lot during that time. But I know some people felt like motivated and inspired. And I was like, I didn't even know that was an option during that time. I was just fully in panic mode and drinking wine.
Right. I know. I mean, like, who knew that, something like that could happen, where someone could just tell you, you have to close your practice. You can't work. You have to lay off all your staff, and you know how I feel about my staff. And I was just devastated. It was so unexpected and so sudden, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I have no coping skills for that kind of a problem.
Nobody, I mean,
Yeah.
it was an insane time. And we're both in industries where our income is from being face to face with
Yeah. Yeah. You can't Zoom over dentistry. That doesn't work out.
You're in people's mouths. So like,
yeah. So are you.
yeah, but I can like, I don't have to, like, I physically go into their mouth, but yeah, I guess there's a way. We went back in June 15th.
Okay. Yeah. So you were closed from March to June as well.
But we tried to do as much telehealth as possible. It was not understood as it is now. So there was a lot of pushback, and then insurance companies weren't covering it. It was a lot of fighting with insurance companies to get it covered. Right. So we did a little bit of telehealth, but it changed how I had to employ my staff, and it shifted a lot. It was a really dark time.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd like to relive, but what did you do for yourself during that time, or there's no
besides panic?
That's fine. So
I decided, I mean, I try to, spin it in a good light, and I just said, you know what, we're just gonna really push forward with the construction of the new place. I'm just going to concentrate on that. I'm going to be there for the project like I normally wouldn't have been able to, and just, get it done as quickly as we could. And so I figured, when and if I was allowed to open again, I would open up in the new space. It would be perfect timing to just move everything over and transition.
So to open in the new space?
I did. Yeah, I think we were allowed to go back, I think the same in middle of June-ish. And then I think I reopened in July, and when the new space was finally done.
It's a beautiful space.
Oh, thank you.
I guess that's your silver lining.
Yeah, exactly. I had to keep myself busy, so I had to concentrate on, building a new office. So that's what I focused on. And so I wouldn't otherwise I would have been like a mess.
Did you rehire your original staff, or did okay.
Yeah, I did. Thankfully, almost all of them came back, besides like one or two decided, they just didn't want to be in the business anymore, because everybody was, was fearful about, being close to, other people, and being in their mouths and things like that. So thankfully everybody came back, and we're up and running, better than we were before. I feel now that, the 2 years that was missed with dental care, oh my goodness, when we came back, I mean, almost every kid had cavities because nobody could see anybody for such a long period of time. It was pretty awful. And from all the dentists that I've spoken to, general dentists and pediatric dentists, they are just overwhelmed when they came back with how many issues people were having. We're still catching up.
I can imagine that even when you were open, parents were still hesitant. That wasn't like their first stop was going to a dentist where their child's mouth was open. And
I feel like I still have some people who haven't come back.
I believe it.
Yeah. Because they're so scared.
The clinic, we're still outside the clinic, and you want to go at everybody's pace so they're comfortable. And now that people's masks are off, and I mean, we're still LA County, so we're still masked at work, but the RSV surge that's happening, it's like illness after illness. And I think I have PTSD at this point. Where when my admin staff is like, we're having a ton of cancellations due to illness, I'm just like, I can't. Can we stop like dealing with these illnesses? It's so scary for so many reasons.
Right. And it can spread so quickly, if a patient, a staff gets it from a patient, then they can pass it to other staff.
I have told my staff, if a kiddo comes in and you don't feel comfortable treating them, like it's okay to end the session. Like the company will take that hit because I never want my staff to feel forced to be in an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
They're getting exposed to something. So yeah, it's a really, really interesting time for sure.
Yes, it is. It is. And
I want to let you go, but I have a couple more questions. I just want to ask you, when you were doing this and you're working, your husband's a surgeon and you have these little boys, how did you surround yourself with the village you needed? Like, what was your village? How did you get that support? Because it does feel like, you know, we can't be everywhere at once. So you kind of feel like you're not doing any of it as well as you want to be.
Oh,
So
yeah.
how did you, I don't use the word balance, but how did you structure and navigate through that portion of it when they were younger?
Oh my goodness. Well, our parents, both our parents have been just wonderful. Thankfully they live in the area, not too far from us. So, you know, having them around, and, you know, it was the first grandchildren on each side. So, you know, we had, thankfully, knock on wood, no lack of help there. They were ready to jump in anytime. And, you know, just the family support was critical. And I never appreciated my mom so much, and, you know, Bill's mom so much, until we had children and we realized how important they were, you know. Yeah. And then we have an amazing nanny that we've had literally for like 17 years. We still have her.
That's unheard of.
I know, because we can't let her go. She's like family. So
that's amazing that we've had incredible nannies too, but
full time now, but
that's awesome, because ours, like, you know, they go to school or they move on and they're still in our lives, but they are advancing in different directions. So I love that you still have the same person with you.
Yeah, she's like family. So, you know, she's just, you know, we're just gonna keep her forever because we love her.
You'll find something else for her to do when the boys.
I have tons of stuff.
Yeah, you're like, we'll just
keep around the house.
What
exactly.
You do. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. And then just finding balance wise, I just say now now that the practice is kind of ramped up, you know, and I have associates in my office, I can actually take a few days off. So
yeah, so that's true. So so you work 3 days a week.
Yes. So right now I'm working about 3 days a week. I go in, you know, when I need to, like if they're, you know, babies that, you know, like can't feed. So that's kind of like an emergency situation. So I'll go in, like I'm going to go in after our, you know, podcast today, to see a few babies. But, you know,
Saturday, everybody recording on a Saturday morning, and then you're to work.
So my scrubs.
So, but how often did you work when you started? I would imagine you were not 3 days a week.
I was like 5 days a week. Yeah. And I was getting burnt out. Let me tell you, it was like, dealing with, you know, seeing like, you know, 50, 60 kids a day. It's exhausting. You can imagine. Yeah. I mean, I have 2 at home, but, you know, in the office, I've got about 60 kids a day. It is draining, and, you know, I'm like you, I care a lot, right? So I give every kid I can my all, right? My full energy, my full attention, you know, and the parents as well, you know, so it is very, very, very draining. And I feel like for what I do, you know, it's really hard to do that 5 days a week and not just be, you know, and fall into a bad place or just be overly exhausted.
Yeah, but I think the point is that's being made is really, really important. Is we don't, you know, I'm lucky enough that now I can be home some days and doing the podcast, or it's now Wednesday afternoons, but it was not like that. I feel like there was a whole chunk of their youth that I was working all day, working evenings and Saturdays. So to build to where we have that flexibility and we have that team put in place that we love and we cherish and we trust.
Yes.
Takes so much grit, so much persistence, so much agony to get to the place where you can work.
Yeah. Because, you know, you and I are both like type A, right?
I don't know how you do this and not be type A.
I know you want to like be in control of everything, and it's hard to let go and hard to say like,
go.
okay, I'm gonna step out, you know, my associate can take over. It's hard to, you know, to trust someone, but thankfully I found someone who's just wonderful, and I, you know, trust her completely. I trust her with my own kids, and, you know, thankfully that's taken a lot of stress off so that I can actually like let go and be like, okay, I'm okay. I don't have to, you know, be there dictating everything, making sure everything's okay. She's got this. So now I go in 3 days a week about, and then I play tennis. I try to exercise, be outside, you know, do social things, travel, meditate, do Pilates, and just find a good balance. Just constantly finding a balance, right?
It's an everyday, you know, activity to figure out where to put your energy and your time. But I don't want to minimize how hard you worked to get to this place, because I feel like there's a lot of women out there or other entrepreneurs that feel like they're drowning and feel like, does this ever get better? Is this worth it?
Right.
And you're living proof that it is.
It is worth it. It is worth it. Just stick to your gut, I would say, as a mom, as a woman, as a, you know, business owner, like you know, you have that instinct in you already. Stick to your gut, you know, stick to what you believe in, practice the way you believe. And, you know, I had to leave several practices because, you know, and it was difficult to leave because it was very comfortable. But it didn't jive, it didn't align with my philosophy. So there was no way I could, you know, do that authentically, and be satisfied and be able to go home and say, all right, I did the best I could, you know, and you have to have that feeling and in your heart, you know that. So stick with that. And, you know, as they say, you know, if you just stick to your gut and treat people well, you build it, they will come. They will just come. It's all the practice is all the word of mouth, and it's still thriving and still growing. Thankfully, I'm so thankful for, you know, all the parents, all the patients that have, you know, supported us along the way and believed in us and followed me literally to like 4 different offices. Literally, it's crazy. I feel like, wow, you know, I must be doing something right because I've got good people around me and who are supporting me. Not only family wise, but, you know, friends wise, colleagues, patients, all of that.
Yeah. Well, I end the podcast by asking people, what are like 3 pieces of advice you would give to anybody who's struggling right now? But I think you just gave one amazing piece of advice, which is listen to your gut, follow your instinct and your intuition. I think that was a game changer for me as well. When I stopped trying to force things and I started to listen to my intuition, allow things. Is there anything else that you would say, any other advice you would give?
Yeah, I would say, be brave, be authentic. You know, if you've ever read Brene Brown, have you?
I get into her and then
get in that arena and get dirty.
Paragraph is so loaded that I have to like take her and like snip it. There's so much to digest. But yes, she's amazing.
Yeah. So be brave, like get into that arena, you know, and then things will happen, and, you know, just be present and listen to your gut.
I love it. Thank you
so
much for
Of course. Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
It was so fun. I'm so appreciative, and it's such a great story and so much to learn from you. So thank you.
Thank you, Jessie. Good luck with everything.
You too. Good luck at work today. Go help those babies.
All right. Thanks. Love you. Bye.